Welcome to Leaving Nothing to Chance, your go-to podcast where we bring you insights from some of the most influential voices in small business and personal development. Each week, we dive deep into conversations with top thought leaders, authors, and business moguls from around the world, sharing their secrets to success and strategies for growth. Tune in for exclusive content that will inspire, motivate, and equip you to take your journey to the next level. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance.
Hey, this is going to be really interesting, folks. This is a new topic for our show, but it's one that many of you are probably familiar with or hearing about. Maybe you're running across it at your gym. I know some of the big gyms here in the U.S. have put in units of this. I know I've been a user of this particular technology for the last couple of years, but I have little baby devices that I've bought. I know you can certainly expand that repertoire, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. But I have a real special guest all the way from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Mr. Tom Kerber, who is the founder and the president of SunPower. So, Tom, how are you today?
Oh, excellent. Thank you, John, for bringing me on.
I appreciate it. Let's just get right into it, Tom, because I got a lot of questions for you, buddy.
Go for it.
I know you're having your Tim Hortons while we're talking there.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
Just kidding. For all my Canadians, including my wife, who misses her Tim Hortons. Although I tell you something real fast. I go to Monterrey, Mexico a lot on business.
Okay.
Monterrey, Mexico now has 7 Tim Hortons.
Yeah, that's crazy. The number that I seen in New York State is really quite surprising now.
Oh, tons, yeah, tons. Anyway, Tom, let's talk about your business because it's fascinating and it's growing, and you're in the right place at the right time, I think, and you're one of the industry leaders from everything I've read about you. So let's just start off with the basics. What is near infrared light therapy?
Okay, just to back it up a step, near infrared light therapy is part of what's now called photobiomodulation, or PBM. PBM, photobiomodulation, is photo being light, bio being biology, and modulation, well, you're changing something. So using light, you're changing something. So that's what PBM stands for. They had a problem for 40 years now. Lasers were the first ones out there, so they started terms like laser therapy, cold level laser therapy, low level laser therapy, and there was a whole ton of terms. They figured out, I think there was like 80 terms to describe light therapy, even red light therapy. And so they finally decided that this is not good. Light therapy is light therapy, and they put it all under the term photobiomodulation. So scientifically, if you search on PubMed, you put in PBM, you're going to find articles. Matter of fact, go to my website, SunpowerLED, and you can go on the research tab and go into PBM database, and there's 7,500 research articles there for people to look up. So let's say you wanted to look up shoulder pain. You could type that in, and there probably is some studies on shoulder pain. You could type in any other term, and you'll probably find something on it. Not for every part of the body, but there's a lot of studies out there that have been out there.
And I have to compliment you because I was on your site last night preparing for our show today. You've done a great job assembling all of that data so that, there's nothing that I don't think there's anything you missed. I didn't look for anything that microscopic, but all the things that ail a 64-year-old body that played judo for many years and took lots and lots of falls on shoulders and hips and back and everything. So you got a very comprehensive website. So I would encourage, once again, people, hopefully you'll become a customer of Tom's, but at the very least, educate yourself, because if you're interested in your health and longevity, this is part of the equation, frankly. Tom, I'm just going to skip around here a little bit, but let's talk about recovery, because a lot of people are using this for recovery.
Recovery from operations, or recovery from doing a sports injury, a sprain, let's say even recovery from a major surgery. What light therapy can do is tremendously speed up the healing process and get you back on your feet. An example that I have on my slideshow that I have done webinars every Tuesday night. So a lot of this information is on my website under past videos. But this one guy, 19-year-old, he swung a pickaxe and it went through the dirt much faster than he thought and and ended up hitting him right above the ankle and cutting his tendon right through. So the up-down motion was all down, no up. It was totally cut through. Now, that would be the same as an Achilles heel tear or something, like when you tear off, that kind of thing. And so they reattached the tendon, and within 2 days it fell apart. And so they had to do it again. So now we're talking major surgery, major trauma in that area. And the guy, they were giving him painkillers and that, and he immediately started with the light. He came down to see me. He was in a cast, and his brother and him used a Dremel tool to cut the cast in half so that they could put it on and off so he could get the light therapy done. And he did it 3 times a day. And they said it to him he was going to be 6 to 9 months before he was walking. And he was walking. We got a video of him walking in 1 month, not 6 to 9 months. And you can imagine the amount of muscle atrophy that would happen if you took that long to heal. You would lose a lot of strength in that leg, and then trying to get it all back, which he didn't have to go through anywhere as major.
Now, how about on the other side of the pendulum, somebody who's not injured, but they want to improve athletic performance, for example?
Good point. They've found the Olympics now. It's being used in Olympics because it's non-doping. It's not, they're not using drugs to do the performance. They're using light. And I've actually helped one of the Olympic athletes who's was going in for seventh, I think it's the seventh time. They call her Grandma Olympics, but she was doing the archery. And the crazy part is when they go across a football field and hit the bullseye kind of thing. That's the kind of shooting she would do. And can you imagine for a 65-year-old woman to be able to pull a 42-pound bow and coming off of COVID as well? And she was able to use light therapy prior to the actual event and after for recovery. So it really helps the athletic performance by having that. And especially, this also comes down to any time you're going to put the muscles through a severe stress or the area. If you had an operation, say on your shoulder, do the light therapy ahead of time and before they actually do the surgery. And your healing time they've seen healing times in half coming off of that. Like the doctors are blown away, the surgeons are blown away by seeing that the healing pace of before and after using light therapy or photobiomodulation on that area.
So they're using it for prehabilitation and for surgeries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And then I noticed too that there's a lot of use for TBIs for military people, athletes, kid falls off,
right,
etc.
So those that are watching the podcast, they won't see this, but you can see it, or whoever is watching it as a video, you can see this helmet that I've developed. And this helmet has you just put that on the top of your head, and it has the red and near infrared light coming out of it. Now, this is not something we developed to grow hair, but this is something that's significant enough power to be used for strokes, concussions, TBI. We've helped quite a number of concussions. Like this should be in every sports camp, wherever there's concussions, and that should be used because you can very quickly help people that have gone through concussions and strokes and traumatic brain injury. And how many football players need that kind of thing because they get banged around. And the worst part of it is not just what they get immediately, but it's the long-term effects of getting their head beat in 20 times or 30 times or 50 times. And down the road, when they're 65, they commit suicide or whatever because they can't deal with themselves, with their emotional state is thrown off. All sorts of really ugly things happen from injury to the brain. So this could be all avoided. We've had Parkinson's, which is really ugly. And to be able to turn back the clock, literally, to have somebody who can't draw an analog clock and put the numbers on it. If you looked at these pictures, they don't even look like a clock. There's some kind of skewed thing and you can't even tell where the numbers are. to coming back to be able to redraw that again and put the hands on it and tell the time. This is stuff that can be done. And with the optical power that we have in our devices, you're talking a 4-minute treatment a day is able to turn this back, turn back the clock. And we got 2 different Parkinson's patients. One hasn't been able to smell and taste for 5 years. The other one was 20 years. And both of them since mid-December. So what are we talking? 2.5 months? And they both got their smell and taste back. Nice. After that kind of length of time. They're finally starting able to smile again. The one fellow's stopped falling. He was falling like 8 times a day. Major improvement on the brain. And I know there's a lot of toys out there and low power devices to grow some hair. And hey, have at it if you want to grow some hair. But if you want to treat the brain, you got to have enough optical power to do the job.
It brings up another question, and you mentioned some of them, but the neurodegenerative diseases that you mentioned one of them, Parkinson's, but it seems like your Parkinson's, your Alzheimer's, your dementias, your other diseases, which I was talking to somebody the other day in reference to my product, and I said, if you think about your grandparents, they didn't die of those diseases. They died of heart disease, cancer, old age, right? Or what we call old age, right? The old age, they might have been 70, right? Which you and I are rapidly approaching now, right? So that's not old age anymore. That's the good news. The bad news is these are diseases of aging that we're hearing more and more of. So how are these working with the person who maybe they weren't necessarily an athlete, they didn't sustain numerous concussions, but they've got the brain stuff going on just because the brain's getting old? How's this working?
So what happens is the light from the wavelength of red that I just turned on now, the bright red that I have, 660 nanometer, or the near infrared wavelength. And sorry, I didn't really complete the answer to that last question, but we'll come back to it. But near infrared and red is wavelengths that can penetrate into the brain through the skull. And I demonstrate that on some of my webinars, but no problem penetrating. But when you're talking problems with cognitive things and you start having trouble remembering severely or different other problems that come along, the light therapy the photobiomodulation can help improve the brain health by doing that. And John, I cannot imagine what would happen if you combined therapies like with what the product you have and the red light. And you maybe even add like something like methylene blue, which is something that reacts at 660 nanometer. So you tie that with those 3 things, a tremendous improvement on brain health that could be possible. I know just recently Joe Rogan had a person on that was thinking Cruz. I'll think of his name, Cruz. Jack Cruz? No.
I just watched it right before. I need that machine because I just watched it before and I forget the guy's name too. But yes, good.
He was talking about methylene blue and brain health. And it's not only good for that, but other parts of the body. And just to think that how the combination of these things even brings you to a new help with brain stuff. And we talk about, the people are getting a little older. But my mom was as sharp as could be at 92 years old. Okay. And it's amazing. And part of it, a very big part of it is obviously long term, what are you eating? What are all the other things that are thrown at our system that maybe my mom escaped? So that's why she had such a sharp. But if you can use light therapy to help the cognitive ability, to help with they call it lymphatic drainage. So you've heard of lymphatic drainage, where it drains away the toxins in parts of your body, the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is in your brain, and that helps drain away the toxins. So you do the light therapy through in your brain, and now what you're going to do is increase the blood flow on the inside wall of the brain, let's say with the red, and with the near infrared, you're going to go in. Can you imagine what happens when you increase your blood flow anywhere on your body? You can improve not only the getting good blood and nutrients into the area, but the other side is cleaning the garbage out, the toxins and that.
Well, we're living in an exciting time because these things are coming out. Now, how did your background, correct me if I'm wrong, you're an engineer by trade.
Yeah, I have 45 years electronic development. I started in high school with my first product. So the first product I made was for rowing racing shells, where they have the 8 guys in these little narrow rowing boats and racing shells. And I made the audio system for some people that were even in the Olympics, which was a little microphone with a little audio amplifier and some speakers in the boat. And I made mine really durable. So that was the first product I had in high school.
You must know the Oldershaw family then in Ontario. They're Olympic racers. Tom's been a friend of mine for years, but that was his, I want to say his cousin, his brother, his uncle. They were all Olympians at various years.
Okay. That goes back so far. I've forgotten who is who there, but this was in the regatta, and they had that in Port Portaluzzi as well as in Boston, where I was selling my audio amplifiers to these crews. And the whole thing was that they could speak quietly, and it would go through the whole boat. So their strategy of what they were doing wasn't, the other teams couldn't hear the strategy. So forget about the big megaphone in front of their mouth to tell everybody in the world what they're going to do. They're just quietly keeping it within their boat. So that was the idea.
Now let's go back for a second. So how long ago did you get exposed to this technology, and where did it start to become, before it became mainstream? Where did it?
Just to back up a little earlier yet. So about 20 years ago, the dental industry was using a halogen bulb, or a halogen, however you pronounce it, that would send light through a little tube that would shine on top of your tooth to harden the filling. And they'd have a blue filter in there, so the blue light would harden the filling. And because of my real love for chocolate and other sweets, I visited the dentist's office far too often. I got fillings on top of fillings. I was in the dental chair lots of times. And in this case, I knew about this. The dentist was pretty much a front runner that I was working with. And she was using this technology of the filling material that was hardened by light. It caused the catalyst to fire and harden the tooth material in a minute. At first, I had all those mercury fillings, silver fillings, as they call them, but eventually I had most of them removed and the new white fillings put in. But at that time, the LEDs go back for 40 years approximately, where they were just a small little indicator light. And you never thought of anything more than that. But I used to have the salespeople that would come and frequent my place because I developed all this new technology. And one guy brought me these high power LEDs, and he said, "Look at how bright these are." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. There's a blue, there's a green, there's a red. Yeah, how much do they cost?" $70 a piece. What would you do with a $70 LED? You need 3 of them to make a light bulb. Forget it. There's no way you're going to sell this. But because I had been in the dentist office enough times, I remembered the blue light, and they had a blue LED, and there was some stuff, that supporting material, that said that this could harden the blue filling material. So it wasn't very long. I took one of the $70 LEDs, and I figured that could make a $2,000 device for dentists. That could sell. Like, there's a markup there. And so I brought the first crude prototype to my dentist, and I said, "Here, I want you to use my tool, my light, to cure this filling." And she was a little skeptical, and I says, "Look, I'll take all risk. If I need to sign anything." She said, "Okay." So she used that light, and she was extremely surprised at how fast it hardened the tooth material. And I was on the market first about 20 years ago, competing against 3M, which isn't fair, especially if you don't have a great big wallet for advertising. So that's the light I had. And it was because of my wife's illness. She had some, not cancer, but she had some challenges. She had hyperthyroidism and a few things. She had surgery to remove her thyroid. She had troubles. I had my own troubles. I fell off a ladder about 35 years ago, second floor height, onto concrete. It was bad flying lessons that day. Didn't work. And I didn't break any bones, but every year, 2 years, I would be in extreme pain from muscle spasms through my back. And so you put those two things together, and about 18, 17 years ago, something like that, the I took my wife in to see this one doctor that I heard about from two different sources, that this was a phenomenal doctor, can help your wife. So so I went to see this doctor, and he starts going over her conditions, and he ended up helping her. But very first meeting, he says, so he's asking her all these questions, and he says, stress can cause all sorts of problems. Is there any stress in your life you can get rid of? What'd she do? She starts pointing at me. I'm the stress maker, right? And it was. We had our share of stress. I've been self-employed all my life. And the number of times that we had no money in the bank account, and Visa and MasterCard was up to the limit, and all of that so yeah, I did cause a lot of stress for sure, and tried to develop these new products, and people would sometimes shaft you for the work that you did and whatever. But anyways, he says, immediately turned his attention from her to me. And he says, what do you do? And I said, I make this powerful blue light for for fillings for dentists. And immediately his eyes got really big. He says, can you make it in red? I'm like, why? He says, red's the right color to activate a drug that kills cancer cells. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've heard this story all my life that the cure is just around the corner. And here I'm hearing about this very targeted light therapy that activates the drug that kills the cancer cells. And the drug had already been approved in Canada for bladder cancer. So it's something that was had some history. And so I started working with him, and I built. The one thing was neat is the timing on it was one of those things I called the divine appointment, where everything lines up. You just can't imagine how everything lined up. And I'm in his office, and that day he was going to go buy 10 red laser pointers, the ones that point at the front of the room. And he was going to put them together with elastic bands to treat two patients that he had already bought the drug for. Now, this is a doctor who bought this expensive drug for his patients. They didn't have to pay for it. His brother was very wealthy, so he had every type of technology you could imagine in his office because his brother bought everything. So he bought this drug for his patients, and we shrunk the cancers on both patients, and it was phenomenal. But we tried to move that forward. It's a separate company. It really hasn't gone too far ahead, even though it had some very good things. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of help there when you're trying to help people in this area. But anyway, so that's how I got the red light. And when I saw him that day, I said, look, can you wait 3 weeks and I'll build you a light, and I'll build a powerful light, because I knew all the stuff. Like, it wasn't like he said, yeah. So I delivered the light in 3 weeks. And that's when in 3 weeks, he started treating both of those patients over the course of a month. And so now, probably about 2, 3 months later, I needed to do something to tweak the light and try and make it better. It's something I can't remember. And wouldn't that be one of those times when I bent over to pick up a paper clip or something, and all of a sudden that muscle spasm just was like just over the top, and I was in a pain for a day or two. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, that red light thing, there's supposed to be something there that red light can help for pain. And I'm like, I'd been to the chiropractors, physiotherapists, all that kind of stuff for 20 years. When you have bad pain for 3, 4, 5 months and try and get out of it, and here I'm like looking at this light and I'm thinking, what the heck? Oh, come on, it can't do anything. I can't believe that would do anything. Okay, what the heck? I'm so much pain. So I was at my office desk, and I was working on the computer on a computer-aided drafting program, and I was in a lot of pain. I'd say my pain was probably an 8 out of 10. Like, it was just when the pain is so great that you can hardly concentrate and screaming at you. And I decided, okay, I'll take that light. And I put the light in the back of my chair, so it was facing my back. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, what the heck just happened? I'm trying moving around a little bit in my chair and I don't feel that pain. I get up and usually I just crawled into the chair to get in. And now I'm almost bending over and touching my toes in 20 minutes. And my pain has dropped from like an 8 down to a 3. And I thought, oh, that was my aha moment when I thought, oh my gosh, we got to have this light therapy for people with pain and inflammation and chiropractors. So that's a long story how I got there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you're really one of the guys that's developed this whole protocol.
Yeah, so it's already, so as soon as I realized that, I built prototypes with LEDs were still too expensive at the time. So I moved over to halogen bulbs with what I call the Genesis technology, which was a layer of water in front of the bulb to get rid of all the heat that comes from a halogen bulb. Because if you put a halogen bulb up to your face, that one of those ones that were in the ceiling, you'd burn a hole in your cheek. But if you had this special filter in front, you could totally get rid of the heat. So I built a lot of products or product prototypes out of these bulbs with water filtration in front of them and helped a lot of people. And then I always kept my eye on the LEDs. And it was about 5 years ago, I started working with the LEDs because now the price had come way down. And now I was able to build lights that you see now. The helmet was built because I went through COVID and I had double lung pneumonia. I was really bad. As a matter of fact, my son said to me, Dad, I'm taking you into the hospital. He says, you're not doing good. And I knew I wasn't feeling well, but I put the blood oxygen meter on my finger and I read 80. And I'm like, that's not good. But you know what? It wasn't comprehending in my brain because of the lack of oxygen. And I went into the hospital and they said, you got really bad double lung pneumonia. And the best thing that could have happened was I would have ended up probably on the breathing stuff, intubated, but because it was so poor. But what happened was the best thing that happened is the doctor asked me, did you get the V shot? And I said, no. And he got so mad at me that I would do that. And they said, you got really bad double lung pneumonia. Here's some antibiotics, go home. And if you get any worse, come back in. That should have been the death sentence there, right? It would have been the death sentence in the hospital for sure, but going home as well, right? No oxygen, nothing. But I ended up using my mini canopy, which is 15 of the palm lights that I have here, these guys here. And you can see how it penetrates right through my hand, especially if I'll just turn off for those that can't see. The light is going right through my hand right now. And so I used what I call my mini canopy, which is like a foot square, like a whole foot by a foot. So I did both lungs at the same time, front and back. And my wife was really nursing me at the time, looking after me. And 2.5 weeks later, I started coughing so bad. Now, I'm not really in touch with my body. That's just not my thing. Some people know everything about their body. I didn't. So I start coughing like crazy. Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to die. I'm coughing so much. No, it's not lingering. This happened 2 years ago. Sorry, just for some reason, suggestive. But anyways, I'm coughing so bad. So I went back in the hospital and they checked me all out and they said, your blood is good, your heart is good, but in 2.5 weeks, your lungs are exceptional. Now, this is right in the midst of COVID.
Wow.
Now, why wouldn't they want to know what I did to have exceptional lungs in 2.5 weeks? And once I had gone through that, I started I talked to one of the doctors and he said to me, he says, Tom, he really was familiar with photobiomodulation. He's done some studies and he said, Tom, that's fantastic with your lungs. And my if my blood oxygen would jump every time up 1 to 2%, every time I did the light therapy on my lungs. And so this was good, but it would fall again until the next time I did the treatment and then it'd jump up again. But I talked to him about it and he says, that's fantastic news for your lungs. But he says, how are you treating your brain? And what most people don't realize is if you have a brain impairment, you can't tell how bad you are. I knew I couldn't finish my sentences. I know I screwed up on lots of words. I couldn't put the words out. They weren't coming to me. But everybody else who knows you said you're totally screwed up in your brain. And so he says, "How are you treating your brain?" I said, "I'm not with the light therapy." And he says, "Well, you better start." So I did use the big panel on my brain, different spots and that. And eventually that's how I built the helmet because of what I saw, how much of improvement. So I'm a crazy guy. Okay. But I love to see how many people we've been able to be helped with this technology.
That's the main thing. So tell us a little bit about your foundation, the PBM Foundation.
So that's not mine directly, but photo.org has a whole pile of research connections on there about using light or in this case, photobiomodulation to affect different parts of the body. They had a whole thing on there on COVID, how it could help the lungs. And we even had a study that we were going to start. We had government approval. We had everything ready to go in the midst of COVID. We had the units built. This is the mini can. Once I learned how well it worked for me, I thought, hey, we got to make this so that others can. So I got the approvals. I had private money behind me. I had 4 researchers on board, 2 of them that had extensive experience already with using light on the lungs. And wouldn't you know, we had 3 hospitals in Canada lined up to do the trial, and everything's ready to go. And then all 3 trials were shut down by hospital administration. What do you know? Yeah, we can really impact the lungs.
Yeah, been there. 11th-hour decisions. Shepherd University. What's your relationship with them? What do they do with you guys?
So Shepherd University is one of the first ones that during COVID actually bought my very large canopy that I make, which is like 3 feet, 2 feet wide by 3 feet. And it's very power dense. It's not like these little panels that you can get on the Amazon or whatever. You'd have to squeeze their panels down by 10 times and maybe you get close to what I've got. But anyways, they're the first ones to buy my technology because I had connections with them and they started using my light. They decided that to use my light for a study, my helmet for a study with opiate addiction and depression. And because apparently in West Virginia, it's a big deal as far as it happens to be the most opiate addiction density, the whole US, because there's a lot of coal miners there and everything. And with all this stuff about clean fuel and some of the stuff, they can clean coal. That's not, but anyways, regardless, all the people that are laid off, no jobs, all the high amount of opiate addiction and depression. And so they ran a study with 50 people. Half of them got the light therapy. The other half did not. And this was over a 2-month period. And the half that did, now they got treatments with my helmet, only 2 treatments a week for the course of 2 months. And those treatments were 3 minutes with my helmet. And all the ones that were in the light group, really substantial improvements where there was no improvements in the group that didn't get the light. So we're talking like depression, cravings for opiates, depression, what else? Outlook on life. And there was like a number of things that they went through and significant improvement in the group that was exposed to my helmet for twice a week over 2 months. So this is something that they're looking at being a big way of handling the opiate addiction crisis. It's not just opiates. Because of the brain depression and everything, it's many types of conditions are actually many types of addictions are because of things that have gone on in their brain. And like alcohol will train your brain for requiring more alcohol. And so with the light therapy, you can actually shut off some of these signals and turn on the right ones and turn on the happy ones. I forget what they call that, but serotonin and some of these other things that are needed in the brain So you get happier by using this light therapy. And that's been published, by the way. So this is not out of my imagination. It's been published, and they're going to do a much bigger trial now in that area at the university. So that's Shepherd's University.
And then if hacking is becoming such a
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And if you use this and combine with your stuff and methylene blue, and you do some of these things, you're going to just help big time that body, whether it's the brain or other parts of the body, to improve in the health, whether it's skin health, whether it's we've had how many people now with ringing in the ears, tinnitus or tinnitus, however, again, different people pronounce it different ways. But to be able to use one of my handheld devices on the ear for 1 minute of the red and 3 minutes of the near infrared, and after a week of treatments to see some change in reducing that level of ringing. Now, not everybody's going to respond. Everybody is different. In our case, we got right now 9 people that have come, or 12 people that come my way, and 9 of them have improved. So like a 75% approval. Hey, 75% better is a whole lot better than
exactly.
0%.
Exactly. It's interesting. My sister has that. I will mention it to her because fortunately I don't have that, but I know she has. I know when other people have had it, it's such an annoyance, and you can't get anything done because it's like you're hearing constant ringing. It's very aggravating. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean,
I'll just mention one other thing is how many people have dental problems or problems inside the mouth. And with the light therapy on their cheek, I've got people that avoided root canals and things like that because with the abscess, it actually helps kill the bacteria and helps the infection to go away, and so the pain goes away. You can stop pain with that in the mouth.
let me ask you this, Tom. So is it every Tuesday night that you do a webinar?
Yes, every Tuesday night, pretty much every Tuesday night. We've missed a few along the way, but for the last 2 years, every Tuesday night, we do a webinar at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's just a case of going to our website. And when you go to the website, you can click on a thing to register to listen in and learn. And I have doctors, researchers, chiropractors, lay people who have used the treatment for all sorts of things on their body, a whole host of different people. Plus, I also help people to understand what light therapy does and how it works. And so that's what I do every Thursday night. And as well, I leave it's from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Sometimes we run over time a little bit, but about 20 to 8, 8:50, or sorry, 20 to 8 or 7:40, 7:45, around that mark. We have questions, so people forward their questions on the Zoom, and we answer the questions and try our best to answer the questions.
And they can get to your website at SunpowerLED.com.
SunpowerLED.com. You have to have the LED on there. If you don't, you'll end up with a solar panel for your house. So SunpowerLED.com. And I just mentioned one other thing. You can, for those that want to do more biohacking, we just saw that on recently with Joe Rogan talking about the methylene blue, but there's some very cool information at www.methyleneblue.red. So that's methyleneblue.red. You'll see Chase Hughes, that's who I was trying to think of, talking about it, the different ones, John Lawrence, there's videos there's other research articles, there's books you can read, but the combination with what the light devices that we have. And I'll just mention one other thing is that there's a lot of toys out there. And I forget, John, where are you located again?
Dallas.
Dallas. Okay. You go to I think you got, in Texas, you got some pretty good hills there.
Yeah, not right.
Okay,
yeah.
No.
In hill country, we got some good ones, real good ones.
Okay. So try and go up that hill with a 4-cylinder pickup truck fully loaded. Do you think you might make it? You might not make it to the top, or it'll take you forever to get there.
Yeah.
If you try that with an 8-cylinder or 12-cylinder vehicle, you're going to fly up that grade. And so our units are really the 12-cylinder, 8 and 12-cylinder products, not the 2 and 4-cylinder deals that can make it a lot cheaper, but will it even do anything is the question. So that's what we've designed. We make all the stuff in North America. It's not made in China, even with the Trump tariffs and everything. That's not affecting us much.
So US, you ship from Buffalo, Canada, you ship from Hamilton?
That's correct. That's correct.
Good,
yeah.
Good. Tom, this has been a privilege, and I know I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners did, and I think we should probably do this on a regular basis because this therapy is only growing.
And if we could spend one whole program just on one part of the body. The amount of things that this can help with, and it sounds science fiction at first, but it's not. There's a lot of reasons, and we could go into a whole program just on why does this work? Why does it do anything? And there's a lot of research that says, but if people go to the SunpowerLED website, they can learn a whole pile. Plus these webinars, they can look at past webinars that I have up there and learn there as well. And don't rush out to buy some kind of low-cost light device and then not see it not work for your issue.
Like anything, right? You get what you pay for.
Yeah. John, it's a privilege to be interviewed by you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm really hopeful that this can help some people in your listening audience.
No doubt. Now, I have no doubt, like I said, it's become, even at my gym on Sundays, I still am a competitive power lifter, and I'll be 64 next month, and I lift with a guy who's 75.
Oh, wow.
This particular guy had open heart surgery about 4 or 5 years ago, and he returned to lifting, lost a bunch of weight, and he is religious about his red light therapy at another gym that he goes to, a commercial gym. This is like a gym we get together to lift weights, like a bunch of big galoots on a Sunday. But in the commercial gym he goes to, they have red light, and it's made him a new man. And if you saw him at 75, not only is he still strong as a beast, but you'd think he was 62, 63. He moves well, he feels good, and most importantly, he's enthusiastic, and he attributes a lot of that to the red light. There you go.
The funny part is, one of the dentists that got one of my helmets for his wife, he thought, what the heck, maybe I should go under it too. He's a senior dentist, and he thought, hey, I'll try it. Who knows, maybe it'd make him a little sharper, maybe 25% smarter, but he used it. He commented 2 months later, I get a long text from him with pictures showing how much hair he grew, thickened up his hair and everything. So it can help with hair growth, but and it can help with cosmetics like wrinkles and all that stuff. That's not my dig, but yes, light therapy can do that. But we're into the serious depth stuff where, damaged bones and joints and whatever.
But to that point, what's on the inside reflects on the outside too, though. So
yeah, that's true. And then you tie it with some of the supplements that can be so beneficial as well.
I would say if you took red light therapy with methylene blue, with immunocal for glutathione, cold water therapy, which I'm a big fan of. I do that every single day. I love Wim Hof, although I was doing it before I knew who he was, believe it or not. And earthing. These are all things that you can do, folks, that look into them. I'm not saying you got to do them all. Tom's not saying that you got to do them all, but you certainly want to be aware of them because the scientific validation is there.
And if it isn't even there, it's coming in the next few. It's coming.
So many smart people like Tom that are well educated have taken the time and their resources and been so dedicated and focused to these particular areas. So the information's out there. Just as the good book says, right? Seek and you shall find.
Yeah, exactly. And light is created in the first place, and it's very good. The light is very good, and we're just using a little tiny piece of it for what we're doing.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And make sure people they can get a discount through John. Check it out.
Our affiliate will be on there, folks. You can buy some units and try them for yourself.
All the best. Thanks, you
Tom.
for the interview, John.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check back weekly for more exciting episodes. And don't miss Ink and Insight every Wednesday, where we celebrate iconic authors and dive into their impactful works.